Now it's time for Inspirational Women and my guest, Barbara Demarest, who joins us from Bellingham to help us launch Breast Cancer Awareness Month. 4 years ago, Barbara received the devastating diagnosis of breast cancer. She shares her story, and we'll hear how she did the proverbial turning of lemons into lemonade. It's not just her life and world that are filled with joy and laughter now. It's spreading to women who also have had this diagnosis, as well as to women and men who are involved in the work of creating this change. So let's meet Barbara and get the big picture story. Barbara Demarest, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Oh, so happy to be here.
I am so inspired by you, your joie de vivre, if you will, the way that you have such passion and joy in your life and you're sharing it. And the thing is, it does revolve around. It started with your own breast cancer diagnosis. And since here we are in October with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, maybe we should begin by sharing that story so we can really get to what that meant in your life.
Well, I would love to share that story, Kate, because it's one that many, many women have experienced and can relate to. It was 4 years ago in 2011 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and like many women, I was shocked and scared. Going through that journey, I reassured myself that it would all be okay, but there were two things that I was especially concerned about, and one was, I don't want to lose my hair, and the other was, I sure hope I don't have to have a mastectomy. Well, I did have to have a mastectomy, but I still thought, nobody needs to know. I can do this myself. I don't need to let everybody know. I'm pretty self-conscious and pretty self-sufficient. So I don't need to let anybody know because I will wake up from my surgery fully reconstructed and just move on. Well, due to complications, that did not happen. I had my mastectomy and I was not reconstructed. So then I was faced with, what do I do now? What do I wear? How do I get back to life? So as I was recovering at home, I made a phone call to the local cancer support group, and I still can hear that voice to this day saying, oh, honey, you can't put anything on that scar for at least 6 weeks. I was like, 6 weeks? What am I going to do? I need to get back to work. I have things to do. I have a life to live. 6 weeks? What am I going to do? Well, later that week, actually, let me step back. That was an extremely low point for me. I had really sucked it up and done good going through the cancer thing, the surgery and everything. But somehow that was just the low point. That was the first time I cried. And it was just devastating to me. Later that week, I was in at the doctor's office, and I picked up a brochure for breast prosthetics, and I was holding that when I was in the exam room. And the doctor, bless his heart, looked at me and he said, most women aren't very happy with that as a solution. I said, well, what am I going to do? And he said, do you knit? And I was like, well, yeah. And he said, well, I've never seen one, but a previous patient of mine said that there's such a thing as a knitted knocker, and it can be really soft and comfortable. You might want to try that. Now, he had a sheet of paper with a picture of a knitted knocker on it and a website address. Well, I grabbed that sheet of paper, and I was like, oh, my gosh, this sounds wonderful. And he said, well, you can't take this paper because it's the only one I have. So I wrote down that address, and I went home, and I called my dear friend, Phyllis. Now, I can knit, but I was too sick at that point to knit my own. But I said, Phyllis, have you ever heard of a knitted knocker? And she says, well, no, but I'll find out about it. So she went to the website, and she found the pattern, and she made me one. Well, later that week, I ventured out to church for the first time going out in public. I was very self-conscious. I put on a bra and stuck a sock in it, and I put on a loose-fitting jacket, and I went to church. Phyllis brought to church in a Victoria's Secret bag my new knitted knocker. Well, when I got that, I took it into the bathroom, and I took that out, and I popped that in my bra, and it was amazing. It was soft. It was light. It was beautiful. It was made with love by a friend who cared about me. It was just amazing. Well, I whipped off that loose-fitting jacket, and I went out, and I was just amazed. I got my confidence back. And I knew then, at that point, that everybody needed to have these available to them. All women that are going through mastectomy and not immediately reconstructed should have this available to them. And if they don't have a Phyllis in their life that can make them for them, we can do that for them. We can show we can care. And so at my next doctor's appointment, I asked my doctor, if we provide these to you, would you hand them out? And he said, we would love to hand them out. So I asked him, how many do we need? And he said, well, in Whatcom County, Washington, we have 200 women a year diagnosed with breast cancer, and of those, about 50 will have a mastectomy. But he said the demand for those will be way beyond those 50. He says what we have is we have years' worth of women that have had mastectomies and not been reconstructed for one reason or another, and they have given up on their traditional breast prosthetics, because they can be hot, heavy, sticky, uncomfortable, and pretty tough on some of those sensitive scars. Many women have had radiation, and they've had burns from that, difficult scarring, a very sensitive skin. So he says not only those 50 a year, but I would guess we'd probably need about 200 a year. So I thought, we can do that. So I went to our local yarn shop and connected with them, and lo and behold, little did I know the amazing network of volunteer knitters that are out there doing what they love. It's a whole community. There are knitter guilds. There are just little groups of women and men that get together and knit and crochet and just share their craft. And many of them take on charity projects. And those can be chemo caps, preemie caps, blankets for hospice, a number of different projects. And so there was a natural group of people ready and willing to step in and help. And they just embraced this project. So for Whatcom County, we provided for all the doctor's offices in the cancer clinic in Whatcom County for about 2 years. Well, then the word got out about this, and it started spreading about knitted knockers. And I actually received an award from Susan G. Komen, and they were so excited about these as a wonderful, free, made with love alternative for women that they said, we got to get the word out about this. Well, they were talking about some pretty big venues, and I thought, oh my goodness, it does no good to create a huge demand, get the word out there everywhere, and not be able to meet it. Because there's over 50,000 mastectomies done a year in the United States alone. And right now, living in the United States, there are 1.2 million women that have had mastectomies and not been reconstructed. That is a lot of women that could potentially want these wonderful knitted knockers. So I thought, okay, I need to get my ducks in a row and my act together if we're going to proceed with this. And, you know, I need to step back and mention that I did not create knitted knockers. As you probably realize, there was this pattern out there. So early on, I thought, before I provide them to our local doctor's offices, I should find that person who named knitted knockers, who created knitted knockers. Well, when I tried to contact them through their website, I found that the website was defunct. It was still sitting there. The pattern was on there, but she was not monitoring it. I was able to track her down, a lovely young woman from Maine who had had breast cancer herself and owned a yarn shop. And so she had created her own knitted knocker and shared it with others. And their little knitting group there in their yarn shop brainstormed and came up with the name Knitted Knockers, which I think is just
it's
very
great.
catchy.
Yes.
But anyway, she had gone, no longer had her yarn shop. She was no longer able to provide knitted knockers, and she said it just broke her heart that she couldn't do that. So when I asked her if she would mind if I used the name Knitted Knockers and took the ball and ran with it, if she would mind, she said, I would be thrilled if you would do that. And that was 4 years ago. So anyway, that's just the backstory there. So back to now, we're maybe getting a lot of publicity. What are we going to do to meet that demand? So that's when I came back and I thought we need a tasteful website that would be a one-stop shop where you can find out everything you need to know about knitted knockers. You can order your free knitted knockers. You can knit knitted knockers. You can see videos on how to make great knitted knockers, which, by the way, have been viewed at this time over 40,000 times. You can download free patterns on how to make knitted knockers, and the patterns have been downloaded 43,000 times at this point. So we wanted to make this site that would equip and inspire knitters and crocheters from all over the country to provide these knitted knockers because we need a lot of them. And my thought was that no one group can provide knitted knockers by themselves for everybody, but together we can do it. And so my vision was that we would help to equip and inspire groups in communities all across the country to provide for their own communities, to provide directly knitted knockers to their own cancer clinics and their medical clinics, and also to fill orders from their states or their communities. And then we would be the blanket over all that would fill the orders for those communities that didn't have a group to provide for them. We want everybody to have a Phyllis, like Phyllis was in my life. And so we wanted to equip these knitters to be able to do that, to provide for their own communities. So, Kate, I've been rambling a lot.
You've been sharing an incredible story. What we should do right now, though, is have you actually mention the website, which is pretty logical, but nevertheless, let's make sure that everyone knows what that website is.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's knittedknockers.org, and I want to emphasize the .org. There are numerous little groups around the country, and some bigger and some smaller. Many of those we've created, and we love it when they use the name Knitted Knockers. We are knittedknockers.org, and I just thank you for that opportunity to share that. I would love to share some stories. Early on, when we were first providing knitted knockers to our doctor's offices, Phyllis was knitting away like crazy, my expert knitter, and she, by the way, has knit over 400 of them herself.
Wow.
Now, most women want the neutral colors. We allow our women to choose between three colors: the neutrals, which are the beiges and the off-whites, the bright colored ones, or the dark colors. Well, Phyllis got a little bored with making these beige ones, I guess, because she turned in this, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. It was a big knocker. It was orange, and it had green hair on it and purple specks. Now, any knitters out there will know what I mean when I say it was made with eyelash yarn, which is hairy. So I thought, oh my goodness, nobody's going to want an orange and green and purple hairy knocker. I can't send that out to anybody. But I put it in the bag that went to the doctor's offices because I thought, well, there women can pick out the ones they like. And so maybe somebody will choose that one. Well, later on, I get this email from a woman from Blaine, Washington, and she says, I just wanted to thank you for the beautiful knitted knocker. I was in at my doctor's office, and I was very, very down and depressed and just feeling very low. And the doctor brought in this bag of knitted knockers. And he said that I could pick out whichever one I wanted. Well, when I was looking through the bag, there was one jewel that shone brighter than the rest. It was orange and hairy and had purple specks in it. And it made me smile at a really difficult point in my journey. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for that. And then she went on to say, and my friends marvel at the beauty of it when I whip it out and show it to them. Anyway, so I guess to each his own. I encourage knitters to continue to make those beige ones, but if somebody wants to have a fun one now and then, I'm sure there's going to be a user for that. But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit. I want to get to more stories, but talk a little bit about the statistics, what the actual cost is of making one knocker. Or do they usually are made in pairs? Tell us about that, Barbara.
Sure. We get the most requests for pairs of neutral colors, and the sizes, we provide sizes A's through double D's and even larger upon special request. But the most requests are for pairs. Now, the women that are knitting these are providing the yarn themselves. We are a nonprofit. We are all volunteers, so we don't have the funds to provide the yarn. So these wonderful volunteer knitters are providing the yarn themselves. The cost to us of providing a pair of knitted knockers to women runs about $10. We don't ask our people requesting them to pay for them, because one of the things that is very touching and meaningful about this, in our opinion, is that women are doing this because they care. And when you're going through a journey like this, knowing that someone cares is priceless. And also, 1 out of 8 women will experience breast cancer in their life sometime. And so we all know somebody. And we often wonder, how can we help? How can we make a difference? Well, this is a tangible way that we can make a difference by providing these knitted knockers. And when people find out that they are free, made with love by these volunteers with no strings attached, it is extremely touching. There are many times tears. In fact, one of the nurses has told me, Barb, I wish you could be here when we hand these out, because these women are so down about what they're going to do next. And when they bring these out and they find out that they can have one of these free, they just cry. And I go, I know, I don't need to be there, because I was there. I was one of those women. So
the women who have received them sometimes come back as knitters themselves. Well, you're a case in point right there, because you have, from that low period in your life, have created this phenomenal organization that now is reaching tens of thousands of women all across the country, as well as internationally, right?
Yes, we're in 32 states right now, and that are registered with us. And we have over 40 groups in 32 states that are registered on our website. And there are knitted knocker groups in 9 countries. Some of those are affiliated with us, but we all have the same vision. And the answer to your question is yes. Many times women will say, I know somebody that knits, or my church group has a knitting group, or I'm going to try to learn how to make these. And so the reach just grows exponentially. We sent out 400 knitted knockers from our little group last month. And we have a group of about 16 women that meet weekly to stuff and prepare these knockers and fix any nipples that are too big or little issues that they may have, and we send them out. And so there's groups like this all over the country that can get together and knit them. And so we love it when people go on our website and look on our provider listing and go through there and go, hey, there's no group in this state. I can do that. I can help, or I know somebody, and they connect with a yarn shop and get this going. And we help them. We send them materials. We have patterns. We have handouts. We have brochures to put in medical offices. We have the resources that we love to help people help their own communities. Because every time that a group starts up in a community that we can forward requests to them, it's one less that we need to send out, but even better, the women that are getting them from women that have made them in their own communities.
Exactly. And you have a story about how being part of the knitting group just has these far-reaching effects of healing that goes on. And there was evidently a woman who came to your group who was going through grief in her life, and she found it so beneficial to be there.
Yes. Just one example of many things. I'll start with a little lead into that. I've been asked, can these be manufactured? Why can't you manufacture them? If you need 50,000 of them, why not manufacture them and sell them for a low price? The answer is yes, that can be done. But we would lose so much on it. As I referred to earlier, the special touch of knowing that someone cared to make these for them is one element. But the other element is not only the recipient that is getting it, it's the person that is knitting and giving of their time and talents. The benefit to us in being able to do that, to help somebody, is just immeasurable. And the story of Anne is just a great illustration of that. As I mentioned, we have a group that meets on Wednesdays in Bellingham at a yarn shop, and we get together and we just have a great time stuffing and fixing the knitted knockers that have been mailed to us by groups from all over the country. Well, Anne came one week, probably a month or two ago, and she was just quiet and just elderly, quiet, beautiful woman. And she just sat there and quietly crocheted away on a knocker. Didn't say much. And we're just all laughing and telling stories and having a great time. At the end, she was leaving. I followed her out to her car and I said, Anne, I just want to thank you so much for coming and helping today. And she looked at me and she says, you know, I lost my husband about 3 years ago and I've just been grieving terribly. She said, I've gone to grief counseling. I've gone to support groups. I've tried many, many things. And she says, nothing has helped me like this has. Knowing that I can do something that can make a difference, that I can help somebody and do this has made all the difference in the world. Since that time, Anne has come back every week. She has never missed a week. And that, I just love it. Anne is bright and cheery and laughing with us, and she's moved on to another job with us. She fills our orders. She puts the labels on the envelopes and puts the knockers in the envelopes with the little inserts that we send out and mails those out. And we love Anne. And I just think it's a beautiful picture that many of us have experienced, but she just is such a great example of knowing what difference we are making. We get testimonies just tons of them every week, and we share those in our little group. I could share one here that I think states it pretty well. She says, hello, I would absolutely love a pair of pink knitted knockers. I was diagnosed with stage 3 triple-negative breast cancer at the age of 23. After a mastectomy, chemo, and radiation, I'm proud to say I'm now 27 and 3.5 years out from diagnosis. Dealing with my diagnosis and now life after cancer at such a young age has had its challenges. Putting a pink pair on would give me that extra boost of confidence needed on most days to feel, well, like I'm enough. The service you provide is one that is in a class all its own. Thank you for so selflessly committing your hearts, your talents, your time, and your stories to help fill the void so many women are trying tirelessly to themselves. May God bless each and every one of you in the most profound way. I have tons of those. We don't have time to do them all, but...
And that's the thing. all that you have shared, Barbara, there's no way that in manufacturing knitted knockers on a mass scale would ever have the same kind of impact. Our heart, I feel the heart can understand what is going on here and how invaluable a gift and service you are providing. So in sharing this and saying how many knitted knockers are needed on any given day, month, year, how that is covered by the generous donation of the women with their time and the yarn. But then there's also the additional cost. These have to go out in the mail. You need to have the packaging. That's a way that those of us who might not knit or perhaps are so overwhelmed with other things in our life, we can afford, though, to make donations. That would be just incredible for you, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would. Thank you so much for bringing that up. As I mentioned, we are all volunteer, and we formed a 501c3, so donations are tax deductible for people that itemize on their taxes. Our postage costs alone are over $500 a month and growing. We send them all over the country and internationally. We've sent them to, like I say, all over the world. But when you send out over 400 in just 1 month, there's significant cost to that. The stuffing, big bags of stuffing, bigger than I am, and I'm not a small woman, and those all have costs. We've broken down the cost to about $10 a pair for mailing out knitted knockers. And we have printing costs. Like I had mentioned earlier, we like to provide materials to medical clinics so that, like I picked up a brochure in the doctor's office wondering what I was going to do, there would be brochures there about knitted knockers and all kinds of venues that we're able to go to spread the word. We have the opportunity to go to an event called Vogue Knitting Live in Chicago and also in New York City and in California, where we are able to connect with 15,000 potential volunteer knitters. Those are like priceless opportunities. We've been given free booths, which are just extremely valuable. But there's costs associated with the printing materials and such that we need to send out. So yes, we do have significant costs. So every $10 helps us a lot. And donations can be made on our website at knittedknockers.org. And we have PayPal, we have credit card. Checks can be mailed to us, made out to Knitted Knockers, and we just appreciate every one of those donations to help us get this done. Nobody gets any paychecks here. It's all volunteer.
And it sounds like by coming together, there's just so much laughter and joy that you could not even put a price tag on that.
That's absolutely right. I've calculated the number of volunteer hours. Right now, we have about 1,600 volunteer hours a month for Knitted Knockers. That's a lot of volunteer hours. But the rewards that we get from that are not monetary, as you said, but they are priceless. They truly, truly are. It's a joy to be able to do that. There are other ways people can help, though. Spreading the word. Every time you go on to Facebook, Knitted Knockers, Facebook, and like and share us, that spreads the reach, not only to the women that can use these knitted knockers, but also potential knitters. So liking and sharing us on Facebook, visiting our website, telling your friends about it. If you know of an opportunity, a Rotary group or some group that we can speak at, we love to do that. As you can tell, I like to talk. And another way is knitters are needed. And so if you know a knitting group, if you're a knitter yourself, if you're a yarn shop or you're connected with a yarn shop, we have wonderful ways we can equip yarn shops to participate. And then, of course, the donations, the financial dollars are certainly appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, for someone who loves to talk, you do so eloquently. And what's important is you have this incredibly important story to share. And Barbara, I am just so grateful that you have shared your time with us this morning and added to that this incredible story. So once again, let's mention that website.
knittedknockers.org.
So thank you so greatly. It's just been wonderful, Barbara Demarest, for your journey, for sharing it with us, and for this incredible work you're doing in our community and in the world, really. So thank you so greatly.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we're at the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Barbara Demarest and Sunday Morning Magazine with Margaret Ullman Hess. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I'll get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage, click on the On Air tab, and look for the show and guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of really being involved and being a part of making a positive difference in the world. Have a week of the same, and please then plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women, which is just one more way Warm 1069 cares for our community. Good morning.